Hey, and welcome to the Harry Man Show, and Happy New Year, coming at you with our first episode 71. We have a guest today that has quite the resume. He's played in bands such as Powerman 5, one of my favorite bands growing up. He's been in Dope. He's currently in a band called Scum of the Earth, and has done recording work for George Lynch. His name is Adrian Ost. How you doing, Adrian?
Hey man, how's it going?
Great, man. Yeah, we kind of went through some stuff to get here, but I really appreciate your time, and I'm excited to talk to you about your
No
career.
man, thanks for having me. Yeah, well, yeah, the other band, I was also I played drums for Soil for a split second as well. I
Oh,
did about a year with those guys.
oh, badass. They're a great band as well.
Yeah, they're good friends of mine.
All right, so kind of just jumping into it, I kind of want to talk about your current project you're in with Scum of the Earth. How did that come about for you?
Yeah, so Scum of the Earth is fronted and started by Riggs from Rob Zombie, the guitar player from Rob Zombie.
Badass.
And I was the original drummer for Scum of the Earth when it first formed. Back in like 2003 or 2004. I can't quite recall exactly pinpoint the year, but I'm the original touring drummer of that band.
Mm-hmm.
So Johnson Pesta from Zombie and Rob Zombie, currently with the Cult. Him and his brother Mike Tempesta, who's a guitar player for Powerman, with me. They played on the albums and they helped. They didn't help write the record. Riggs wrote all the material, but they played on the album, the first album, and then I was brought on to be the live drummer, because those guys were doing other stuff, and it was something that I wanted to do. And at the time, I was living with Mike Ransom, the guitar player for Edema.
Okay.
We lived together in L.A. and when I got the gig, I brought him on as the guitar player. So me and Mike Ransom, and then Riggs he already had a bass player already set up. I can't remember who it was. It's been so long, but yeah, so we were the first touring band, and we did the first U.S. tour, which ended up it was fun, for a little while, but then it ended up turning into a kind of a disaster because I don't know, at the time they were asking, we were getting a lot of money to play the shows, because it was banking on the fact it was Riggs. Riggs had just recently left Rob Zombie, so it was kind of banking on that status, So I think coming at that angle as a new band and just and we had all these, we had myself, and Mike Ransom from Edema. So it's kind of like that all-star kind of lineup, So I think that we kind of got ahead of ourselves basically, and then we were asking for too much money. So basically, as the tour unfolded, people, because it wasn't a known band, so people weren't really showing up. And we had some crowds here and there, but the promoters were banging on the fact that it was Riggs from Rob Zombies, and that just didn't really pay off as much as they wanted it to. So basically, like towards the middle of the tour, promoters basically stopped paying us.
Oh, wow.
They were like, yeah, because they're like, we can't, the ticket sales are so low, like we can't give you whatever it was, some ridiculous amount of monny,
That's a
even to today's standards. Yeah, even to today's standards, the money would be still really high, So, so that's the only bummer. So they kind of got cut short. So then after that happened, Riggs kind of had to go back to the drawing board basically and restructure the band properly and build it up properly, like you would with any band, And now that's kind of what the band's been doing, and he's been successful, and he's been doing lots. He's been touring pretty heavily since then. Now that everybody's kind of have the right mindset and doing things properly, basically. So basically, I'm back with the band now. During this COVID thing, I just reached out to Riggs, and just one day I was just checking in with him, and I was just like, "Hey man, what's up?" He's like, "Hey, we touch base." And then I asked him, I go, "Well, who do you got playing in the bands now?" He's like, I'm getting a whole new lineup, So I was like, "Oh crap." And, so I asked him if he'd be into me coming back on, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So, that's what happened. And then I brought on my buddy Clay, from LA, and he's the guitar player. And then Clay brought in his buddy, on bass. But as of now, we haven't rehearsed or done anything yet because of this whole COVID thing. It's just been totally getting in the way. We had like 25, 30 dates booked last October, and it all got pulled
Damn.
because of the COVID.
Yeah,
So yeah,
That's a big blow to that. I kind of want to ask, so I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't seen you guys live, but in videos, is production a big part of the stage show too? Do you guys also dress up and kind of get in the theme of it as well?
Yeah, production. Yeah, Riggs is really, really into production. As far as the wardrobe's concerned, we haven't really gone through that part of it yet. But as far as the other portion of the production, yeah, there's big drum riser. There's big demon heads with like LED lights in their eyes. Yeah, big. There's Riggs is talking about. I think what we're doing, we're bringing out an LD and having like a 70 or 80 foot LCD screen behind us,
Jesus.
like a big wall, and that's going to be completely animated and like playing, like flames and like skulls and like, well, I haven't seen the layout yet, but that's the plan.
Yeah, this may be a silly question, but when you get into a pre-production stuff like that, do you find yourself kind of rehearsing with the costumes on and getting used to that, or you kind of
you can do wardrobe rehearsals for sure. Yeah, I mean, you don't do that stuff right away,
Yeah,
but
I can see that being.
But towards the end, towards the end, you absolutely will. Yeah, we'll do that.
And so, what albums do you currently have out with that Scum of the Earth?
I don't remember the title. I'm on the second album.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's blah, blah, blah. I have to look. Whatever the second album is. I should know the name of the album, but like I said, I recorded that album so long ago. I mean, that was
it Sleaze Freak?
Yeah. Well, let me do some due diligence here.
Oh, no. I've been listening to the band and kind of getting in the midst of things too. So yeah, I kind of geeked out on it a little bit myself.
I can tell you in like 1 second if you want me to.
Oh, no worries. I just kind of want to make sure that we have some recordings to show them.
Yeah. No, let me see here. I got to go to my catalog. I have all my catalog stuff logged in here. I know this is like unprofessional artist. Like, I don't even know the name of my album.
It's all good. This isn't Joe Rogan, man.
So it's the album with oh my god, I don't even know. This doesn't even say the name. I don't know, man. Let's just say the second album. I think it is Sleep. Well, so there's one album with like all the band members on the front of the album, like all looking like cartoon characters, and that's not the one I'm on.
Okay, so yeah, it's blah blah blah. Then.
Yeah, blah blah. Yeah, blah blah blah. That's what I did. So I did say the right album.
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
Yeah, sorry to spring that on you, man.
I'm not as unprofessional as I thought. I guess.
So I kind of want to bring it back. I mean, about your history of learning how to play drums. You started out as a jazz musician. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I started out as a trumpet player. Actually, believe it or not. Yeah, my dad was a trumpet player, and my parents kind of wanted to get me into music, and their natural direction was to get me a trumpet because my dad was in the trumpet. So so I did that, and I actually mastered the trumpet at the time. And I was actually what you call first chair. So there's all these different levels, like first chair, second chair, third chair. So basically, first chair is like the lead guy. So at the end of my trumpet career, I ended up getting into the I left as the first chair trumpet player. So I was like the best of the best, but I haven't. You give me a trumpet now, I'd probably scare the hell out of you and be like a horror show. I could, yeah, I couldn't play trumpet now to save my life, but yeah. So I started out as a trumpet player, and then crazy enough is like I would always, when I was a trumpet player, I always get yelled at by the music teacher because I'd always go up into the drum section and want to talk to the drummer, and I was always trying to play drums, and my band teacher at the time was like, "Get out of there, man!" He's like, "You're my trumpet player. Get the hell out of the drum section." He was always yelling at me, and I was always telling my parents, "I'm like, I want to play drums," and nobody was for it at first. They thought it was just a phase or whatever. And
so was it the kit that brought you in, or you just saw the snare being played?
No, I played in the jazz band, so there was a full-on drummer, and like the pet bands and all that stuff. So there was a full-on rock drummer,
Oh, right on.
And it just really got me going. I was like, yeah, that's really cool, man. I really want to do it. But yeah, so finally, in eighth grade, they were having open tryouts for because the drummer had left and was going to high school. Right? I was younger. I wasn't. No, it wasn't eighth grade. I was eighth grade for me, but or seventh grade going into eighth grade, and the drummer that was an eighth grader was going to high school, right? So he was leaving So the drum position was opening up, and they were holding open auditions during lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't open auditions. It was auditions for the drummers that were already in like playing the snare drum and the cymbals and the bass, all that crap.
Yeah.
So they were auditioning to move up into the trap kit, the drum kit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't an open audition. It was just for the drummers to figure out which drummer was going to move into that chair. But I showed up anyways, uninvited. And then I sat there and watched all the auditions. And then, my band teacher was like, "What are you doing here, man?" He's like, I'm like, "I want to watch," And at the very end, he goes, "Okay, man." He's like, "I know you want to try." I go, "I want to try out." Like, and these are all the drummers that already tried. So he probably already had his choice made, right? But so I wanted to try out anyways. And I'd never even touched a drum set before, like literally never, like not, so I'm going up against drummers that were actual drummers. So the music teacher put on a jazz record. He goes, so like, the whole jazz beat, and he goes, "Okay, let's see what you got, man." He goes, "Mimic what that drummer's doing on that record." And I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." And I never sat down a drum set before. I literally sat down and mimicked and played it exactly to the T. And I ended up beating all the drummers that were already drummers and got the position to be the jazz drummer the next year.
That's fucking crazy, man. That's badass.
Which is nuts. It was like I've never even sat behind a kit before. Like I'm talking never even sat behind a kit.
So you would say you're just kind of memorization kind of picked up with the drumming a lot faster with drums.
My hearing, I was always into hearing, and then as I was growing as a drummer and a musician, all my teachers and I took private lessons from some private people, and that was always the main focus, was like listen first, hear it before you play it, if you can hear it and you can define it, then you know what to do, what I mean? But if you just jump behind a kit just to start beating the crap out of it and have no structure and have no direction, then you don't really know what you're doing, right?
So with your dad being a musician, did he kind of push the education skills on the kit as well too, as he did with the trumpet?
No, dude, my dad was he was a trumpet player when he was a kid, but then he, that was it. That ended for him. Like, he wasn't really a big musician, even though he did it, but it wasn't really a musician, in that sense where he kept it up. And, we were always a musical family. Like, we like to listen to a lot of music and a lot of different variety of music. But my dad was in the Air Force, man. He went that route the musician thing was just all me. It was something that I decided to go down that path.
So you mentioned you took lessons. Who were your influences? Like your first rock drummer influences that you were watching?
Oh man. Well, I remember having a huge fascination with Tommy Lee back in the day.
Yeah.
Just because you turn on MTV and all of a sudden he's in this drum cage spinning fucking in circles, I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, who is this dude?
Yeah.
In a drum cage spinning upside down.
Yeah.
And then just beating the crap out of it, which is really cool. So that he was one of them. Rick Allen from Def Leppard, I was really into him. I'm trying to think who else. Joey Kramer from Aerosmith, super super huge fan. Phil Rudd, AC/DC. But of course, there's the classics too. Like Neil Peart was a huge influence as well. Like, I was a huge Rush fan back then. I was a little bit more of a progressive player.
Yeah, and
more. I was listening to like Rush and like Primus and stuff like a little bit more progressive type stuff,
Yeah, every drummer has to go through a Peart phase. It's just, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I never went the angle of studying his abilities. I tried, but that wasn't really the route that I wanted to go. I didn't want to be that type of drummer. I really wanted to be more of a solid backbeat, like high sticking, heavy hitter kind of dude,
Yeah. With the side note question though, I mean, you do play kind of like, I guess not to label you, but electronic kind of rock. Was any of his like electronic uses like influence you as well, and how did that get incorporated into your setups as well?
Oh, you mean as far as bands or drummers?
Bands, like just doing samples and all that stuff. Was that just something that kind of came with the groups you were in?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into those kind of bands, like Nine Inch Nails and like that band Stabbing Westward and like that kind of. Orgy back in the day.
Yeah.
I loved all that stuff. And like, and I played I was playing in a bunch of local bands and stuff that I'd started with friends. We kind of had that kind of thing going on too. I had a band called the Red Sector, and it was very much like that. It was like very electronic-y, Stabbing Westward meets Orgy, not Depeche Mode too much, but that kind of thing, Nine Inch Nails-ish, more poppy. But
so once your parents kind of accepted you being a drummer, do you remember the first kit they kind of invested for you, or did you kind of piece one together?
Yeah, no, I do remember. Yeah, there was this buddy, this guy that I went to school with. His name was Willie Adelson, and I can't remember. He played drums for a little while, and then he bailed out, stopped playing. I can't really remember what kind of his vibe was. Like, he was kind of a jockey dude. Like, I don't know. I can't really remember too much, but because it was that was like, Jesus, so long ago. But but he had a kit for sale, and it was an old like 70s. It was either a Gretsch kit or an old Ludwig kit, like gold sparkle wrapped, old piece of junk. I mean, well, we thought it was a piece of junk back then, but right now, if you had that kid, it'd be worth thousands, right? It'd
be a relic at this point.
Yeah, it'd be a total collector's item. It's like, but back then it was just a piece of junk. I was like, I think we got it for like $150 or something, something stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my very first kid, like having an actual drum kit. I mean, I do have a picture of myself at 3 years old with a Mickey Mouse drum set, believe it or not, which is funny. And like standing there in my diaper, like with a Mickey Mouse drum set, which is funny. But
went full circle on that one.
But I don't consider that really my first drum kit because I was 3 years old. I didn't shit in my pants, fucking kicking that thing over probably. Who knows?
Yeah. But yeah, you probably started out with the Ludwig standard or something like that. So, I'm shifting gears again, but you had some amazing opportunity to do some tech work with some great bands. Was that kind of something, that skill you're developing as well, or that just kind of a networking thing where you kind of wanted to travel and see things?
Well, I mean, that was I did tech. Like I used to work for this company called SIR. It's in LA.
Oh, okay.
So when I wasn't touring, I had a buddy of mine. His name was Todd. He's a drum department manager, and he would allow me to come in and work. Like when I wasn't touring. I mean, because musicians, it's a hard life, man. Because when you're not touring, a lot of people think like, oh, you're a big rock star, like touring the world, playing Madison Square Garden, blah blah. Blah.
No.
They think that you're like filthy. They think that you're filthy rich, right? Because you're playing all these fucking amazing places. But people don't realize that being a musician a lot of times is like you're just an employee, like just working for any other company, right? You're getting a paycheck, you're getting a per diem, and it's you're getting a salary, and it's the same thing as like if you're getting a salary working for Kmart, well, that's cool. You're getting your salary if you show up for Kmart, but the second that you don't show up, you don't get paid, right? Well, it's the same thing in the music business. So if your band is off from touring for 6 months, well, guess what? You're not making any fucking money.
Yeah.
You're sitting at home broke. You're not broke, but
you're spending
the money that you made. Yeah, I mean, especially living in like Hollywood, LA, New York, or wherever, and you got all these high rents and high mortgages, and it's expensive. So you go out in a band and you make 10, 15, 20 grand or whatever. Well, that's not going to last very long. And
no, it's like 3 months in LA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was. So I would work for SIR. Back to the point. When I wasn't touring, which was great because I was up in the drum department, basically like cleaning drums and tuning them and setting them up. So I got kind of involved in that tech world. Well, what SIR does, bands will come into town in LA and they'll do like these one-off shows, or these TV specials or whatever, and they'll hire SIR to provide all the gear, right? But then they'll also subcontract a couple techs so that the local musicians, because if the band's only doing a one-off, sometimes it's cheaper to leave your crew at home because you're saving on a bunch of flights to hire a couple local techs because they're already there. You know what I mean? So, and you don't have to pay them per diem. You don't have to put them in a hotel room. You don't have, there's so many expenses that get eliminated. So basically I started getting hired on to do local drum tech gigs. Like I did when NXS reunited.
Oh, the TV show?
Yeah. So when they did their very first performance with that new singer on top of Tower Records, like I was a drum tech for that gig. Like I got hired through SIR.
That's badass.
Yeah. Man. So and then I did a bunch of stuff I did stuff for Prince. I did stuff for Beck. I did, a bunch of stuff locally, but I never technically didn't work, I didn't tour with those artists, but I did local drum tech stuff for them. They didn't even know that I did it, and they didn't care. But the point is that that's what got me introduced into that world. And then I got the opportunity. So Johnny Tempesto, really great friend of mine, drummer for the Colts.
Amazing drummer, by the way.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of my best friends. And so his drum tech had quit. They had a 3-week tour in Australia booked, and his drum tech had quit. And I heard it through the grapevine. I didn't hear directly from Johnny because we were friends, but we weren't as close as we are now. But I heard through the grapevine that he was looking for somebody. And I think even my drum tech for Powerman at the time had got referred, even got the phone call for that gig. But my drum tech was already out with somebody else because Powerman, we were getting ready to be home for a while. Mm-hmm. So my tech was already gone. So then I reached out to that camp and I go, yo, dudes, what's up? And that was, nobody thought that I was even going to be interested in something like that because I was a drummer, a professional touring drummer. Mm-hmm. And so everybody was like, "Are you sure, man? Like you're an artist. Like you sure you want to go tour as a drum tech, some band?" I'm like, "Wait, it's the Cult. It's Johnny Tempesto, who I love." Yeah. And not only that, but I'd never been to Australia, so that was a big thing too. It's like going, 3 weeks to Australia, and I looked at it as, well, it's just going to be 3 weeks to Australia, and then he'll probably get his old drum tech back or whatever. So that's all I was kind of going for, was just to do that. I wanted to go to a free trip to Australia, right? It's like free hotels, free food, free, getting paid, and being in Australia, it was like a place I've always wanted to go. So I took the gig and we did New Zealand, Australia, and what was supposed to only be a 3-week run, it turned into like almost 10 years.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know you were with them that long. That's badass.
Yeah, I was somewhere around 8.5, 9 years. I was with them for a long time. Now, it was 2010 to 2016, I believe, or 15. But I did take a little bit of a break for like one tour. I actually got fired, believe it or not, which is weird. I got let go like 2 days before the tour started, which was really weird. I can't remember why. I think I was just being too crazy out there. I think they wanted somebody a little less rock star than I was at the time.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
So yeah, well, it's funny because I got fired like literally one day before the tour. I was pissed because I had gotten offered like this 6-month tour with this other band, like Lights Over Paris or some shit, and and I turned it down because I was being loyal to the band. So it really pissed me off that I got fired. I didn't get pissed because I got let go and wasn't able to do the tour. I just got pissed because I turned down work.
Yeah. Yeah. So
a lot. So a lot of work. But anyways, So that's why I started teching. Yeah. So that kind of, it was a career that started that I didn't realize that was going to be happening, and then I kind of went with it, man. That was it.
So I just I can go on hours about tuning and stuff like that. I know John DePesta is a heavy hitting drummer. And he has a signature stare, but is there any like tuning techniques you would recommend kind of following that you kind of followed, or was it all kind of by ear as you went?
No, there's a few techniques that I do. You put your finger in the center of the drum, and then you start tapping on the edge of the right near the lugs. You just want to make sure that tone is matched up with all the rest. You know what I mean? So if you put your finger down, it's like doo, and then you hit the other one, it's like boom. You know what I mean? Like you want to make sure that those are this relatively as close as you can get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With the human ear.
Yeah, it seems like the old school way is the way to do it for everybody.
Yeah, it's a big thing, but tuning is kind of a preference too for people. I've seen people play their heads where they're just flopping around like baloney,
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, and then I've seen it like tighter than a frog's ass too, like fucking super tight where your stick, like you barely touch your stick and it bounces back and hits you in the fucking eye.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
While we're talking about gear, you're currently playing DW, is that correct?
I'm a DW artist. Yeah, I've been with them for a long time. I love that company. I love the people that work there. Love those drums. Yeah, my absolute favorite. Ricky Rocket actually from Poison he's actually the one that got me that endorsement.
Oh yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah, Ricky Rocket. He's got a company called Rocket Shells, which I was originally endorsed with them.
I remember that.
With him. Yeah. So I was endorsed with Ricky, and I love Ricky, and I love his drums. And I didn't leave Rocket Shells because DW drums are better. It was so Ricky had got me. I didn't have hardware endorsement, so Ricky had got me in touch with Garrison to get me a hardware endorsement. To use with Ricky's drums, right? So which was rad, you know. And what ended up being kind of an issue, it really wasn't too bad of an issue, but you know, Powerman, we did a lot of flying in. Like we'd fly to Korea for 4 days and fly to China for 3 days, or you know, wherever. And you know, the biggest problem was that Rocket Shells were just not available. You know, of course, they're not in distribution areas like DW's. Like DW's a huge company. So DW would end up just providing the whole, because we'd have to do, you know, you do backline rentals, or the promoter provides backline, right? So so my kit would end up just being full DW, because since I couldn't just get DW hardware and then, you know, Rocket Shells weren't available. So I just ended up making the transition later on, you know, a year or two later, just doing a full, you know, I got the offer to do a full on DW endorsement, and I took it. But
one thing, not to interrupt you, one thing I have to compliment DW on is their consistency. When you sit behind a collector's kit, they all sound great. I mean, like you know what you're getting. You know what I mean? So
they're incredible. Yeah, they're great. They're great company, man. And they've really taken care of me. And you know, it's like I haven't toured in a few years, you know, and I can still call Garrison today, and he'll answer the phone and be like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" And I'm like, "Yo, you know, like I need to get this, or this." Is
maple your go-to, or do you kind of mix with some of their exotic woods as well?
I don't have any exotic woods, but I'd like to, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I don't have a free endorsement. You know, I still got to pay. You know, it's like I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a decent. It's definitely decent. So
yeah, to have DW on your resume is a big deal, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, if I had, you know, I get basically why I'm mentioning this is like if I had all the money in the world, yeah, I'd probably have every DW kit made. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? But it still costs money. You know.
So, what's your choice of heads to putting on a maple kit?
You know, well, I'm with Aquarian. I'm endorsed by Aquarian. But I mean, I got to be honest. I do like a good. I like a coated, like a double ply coated head. You know, even live, like you know, I know they're supposed to be for the studio, but you know, a double ply coated heads really works out.
Yeah, it works live and the studio pretty well.
Yeah, they're warm, they're easy to tune. That's the biggest thing too. Like you know, if you start going to a pinstripe or a black dot, something like that, those are just so wild. They sound killer if you get them right, but if you don't, they sound horrible.
Well, plus the life of them doesn't last. You get about 2 or 3 weeks out of them. You got to switch them out instantly.
Yeah. They really are they're really temperamental, and they're hard to keep in control. You know, it's funny, a controlled dot is hard to control.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, not to shift gears with you real fast though, but talk about Powerman 5000. You had a relationship building with Spider before you joined the band. Is that correct?
No, actually, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was super close with the guys in Dope.
Oh, okay.
And originally I auditioned for Dope back in like 2000 actually, after the Life record, I believe, or during, I can't remember if it was during. Anyways, it was right around 2000. So I auditioned. I was really good friends with Simon, Edsel's brother. And I stayed in touch with him quite a bit. And I mean, they even drove the bus. They were like, "Hey man, we're going to be," I mean, they even called me one time and they go, "Hey dude, we're driving the bus straight through Portland up, and then we're going into Vancouver, Canada." He's like, "But then we're going back down to Portland, Oregon." At the time I was living in Portland, Oregon. They go, "And then we're going back down to Portland, Oregon, like 4 or 5 days later." They go, "Why don't you just come? We're going to pick you up, man. We're going to just jump on the bus." And I'm like, "What?" Like, so that's what we did. So yeah, that's how close I was with those guys. So yeah, I literally just jumped on the bus and spent like a week with them, just hanging out on the bus. You know, like they went to go shoot their video up in Canada. So that's how kind of close I was with those guys. And then they called me when they lost their drummer. Like, "Hey man, we, you know, we think that we want to get you in the band. And I'm like, oh, I mean, like, that'd be fucking sweet, right?
Yeah.
They go, there's one other guy that we're auditioning to, this guy Racy. And I go, okay. So I had to film myself for this video, and then Racy did the same. And we sent the video in, and yeah. And then Edsel called me. He's like, dude, he's like, you killed it, man. You look great. You're playing great. He's like, we just got this other guy, you know, and he goes, but unfortunately we can't we can't hire you. We're choosing to go with the other guy. What Racy ended up doing, he put on a wrestling mask at the end of the video. This is the weirdest fucking story ever. He put on a wrestling mask, grabbed this girl, lifted her up over his head, and slammed her on the bed. That was his winning move. So it wasn't his drumming, but he is a fucking great drummer. I mean, really, he was the right guy for that gig. You know, he really was. He was an amazing drummer. And I've always been a big fan of his drumming, and still to this day, he's great. But yeah, that's how he beat me. He body slammed some chick in a wrestling mask. And they thought he was nuts. Yeah, and so I lost it. But it's a good thing that I didn't get that gig, because like literally a month later, and I had met Spider and I met Powerman prior to me joining the band, but we weren't friends. But so Edsel calls me, goes, dude, he's like, sorry you're not in the band, but he's like, I got something even better for you, man. I go, what? He goes, Spider just lost Al and Dorian. I go, you're fucking kidding me. I thought it was a joke right at first when I got the phone call. I go, you're fucking kidding me, right? This is a band, Powerman 5000. Like, they just got done selling almost 2 million albums, right?
This is after When Worlds Collide, right?
This is exactly towards the end of Worlds Collide, and it was still being pushed. I mean, yeah, this is like, yeah, they had just finished up recording Doomsday. Okay. And so Bombshell was just coming out, and so I mean, Tonight's the Stars Wrote was still like, it was still selling records. It was mad. It was still huge. A lot of
radio. I remember hearing that song on the radio constantly. Like,
you couldn't turn the radio on and not hear Worlds Collide. It was on every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And so I thought it was a joke. I'm like, well, how the hell are you going to get me in Powerman 5000? This band's out of LA, one of the biggest bands in North America right now. Mm-hmm. And there's like probably 10,000 drummers in LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, there's no fucking way. But sure as shit, he's like, no, dude. I'm telling you. He's like, you're the guy. He's like, I don't give a shit about all the other drummers. I go, they're going to audition, but they're not going to do what you do, man. And I go, there's no way. So I'm literally on the phone with Edsel. This is back when I had landline call waiting, you know, all that old school shit. And all of a sudden it's like, beep, beep. The phone beeps. I go, oh, Edsel. I go, Edsel, hold on, man. I gotta take this other call. Let me just see who this is. And he's like, yeah. So I clicked over, and then it goes, and I clicked over, and he's like, is Adrian there? I'm like, yeah, it's Adrian. He goes, what's up? It's Spider from Powerman 5000. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, no way. I was trying to refrain myself, or like hold myself back and not seem like an amateur, right? So I was like, oh, hold on. I go, Edsel's on the other line. So I go, Edsel's fucking Spider on the fucking phone, man. I gotta let you go. Like, freaking out, right? Like inside, you know. Uh-huh. So yeah, that's kind of what happened. And Spider's like, hey man, he's like, I heard that, you know, he's like, I heard that you're looking for a gig, and I've heard a lot of great things about you. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, sweet. So he flew me down to LA, man. He flew me down for the weekend. And he actually picked me up personally in his own car, picked me up, took me to a hotel, checked me in, and then we met with the band. I can't remember if it was that same day or if it was the day after, at a little rehearsal studio place, and we played, and it fucking felt great, man. I mean, it was, I could feel it right away. I was like, this is amazing. Like, it just locked in. It was heavy. It was powerful. And yeah, it was really good. I mean, I literally, when I learned that material, you know, Spider gave me like a month and a half or whatever, you know, before he flew me down. And
that's a long time.
Yeah. I think that I played those songs, I want to say 6 to 8 hours a day.
That's what you got to do it.
But every day, I think every day of the week, man, until I went to LA. Like, I had those songs backwards and forwards. But by the time we got done playing, the band was like, dude, you know these songs better than we do. Like, you know, they're like, we haven't played these songs in a long time. Like, you're playing them, you know the parts better than we do, which is why, I mean, I literally played those songs. I mean, those guys didn't play those songs 8 hours a day for a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that had a lot to do with it. And a lot of the other guys that came in and played, they didn't do that. You know what I mean? They interpreted their own parts. You know, I learned those songs note for note. Like I knew every single fill, every single part. I mean, I learned Al's parts backwards and forwards. And
most of the guys are probably learning on the way there in a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of those guys who were a couple days before, you know, are just thinking that they're good enough, you know, and they just like, oh yeah, like I kind of know what that part. I know what that part is. I kind of. But yeah, what Spider told me at the time, he's like, all these guys came in and played. He's like, but they didn't play the right parts, or they made up their own parts. So they didn't know what they're doing. And he goes, that's not what I'm looking for. He's like, you're the only guy that came in here and fucking played these songs perfectly. And when Spider drove me to the airport, even though they still had a couple more guys to audition, because I guess Adam, the guitar player, had a friend that wanted to audition, and maybe Mike did too. But he told me, he's like, I don't want to get your hopes up too much. He's like, but I'm 99% sure you're my new drummer, dude.
Oh, that's badass, dude.
I was like, no fucking way. Yeah. And I was actually a chef, because I have a culinary degree, right? So I was a chef. I was working at a retirement home, dude, fucking on the line. I was making food for these old seniors at a retirement home when I flew down to do the audition. And so then I had to go back to my job.
That must have been a head change.
While I was waiting, and he didn't. I kept calling him and calling him. Nothing. And they didn't tell me for like almost 2 months.
Oh, that's a long time.
I know. And I'm sitting here making like sugarless cupcakes for seniors, like fucking dying. Like fucking, I was like, dude, like, no. Yeah.
Oh man,
it sucks, dude. It was like the worst shit ever, man.
Yeah, you can't even really talk about it because you don't want to bullshit anybody, and that's a shitty position.
It was just so painful. It was like pulling teeth, man. I was like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing in my life, and here I am now. I'm back cooking at a retirement home. So that was really painful. But then finally, I got the call, and he's like, hey, listen, he's like, you're not in the band yet. He's like, but we're gonna fly you down. We're gonna move you to LA, get you at your own place, put you on a payroll, and then basically we're gonna do a trial thing, just like we want to spend time with you. It's like we don't want to say that you're in the band, but he's like, but we're willing to give it a shot. I'm like, that's fucking sweet. Yeah. Because they want to make sure that I'm not some crazy lunatic.
Well, you got to get along with who you're in the band. The lifestyles, you got to make sure everyone's stable.
Oh, dude, yeah. That's way more important. Like being in a band, like that's a lot of people don't realize. Like you could be an amazing musician, right? Like the best musician in the world. Mm-hmm. But if you're not valuable to anyone, like if you can't go on a bus with somebody and
not get angry and lose your mind.
Yeah, not get angry or not make somebody laugh or just, just kind of be fucking normal. Yeah. Like you're not worth shit to anyone but yourself. You might as well be the best guitar player, best drummer. This is something I would say, like in your basement, because you're not worth anything to anyone. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of good musicians out there. And I've beaten out a lot of great musicians because of that. Like guys that are 10 times more talented than I am, at least on a skill level. But the thing that I bring to the table is all the other stuff too. Like I'm a great drummer. I'm solid. I have a great meter.
Social skills.
Yeah, my social skills, and I'm warm. I'm funny. I'm positive. Yeah. And all that stuff really matters when it comes to being a musician. And it's
well, just in a short time I'm talking to you, I can tell you're a cool dude. So for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be like that. You can be a complete asshole, but you're going to be all by yourself. You know what I mean? Or you're going to have to be an Ozzy Osbourne or, a complete leader where you call this, or a Trent Reznor or a Marilyn Manson. Like that's the only way you can get away with shit like that. You know what I mean?
And that's one in a far few, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. You better be that good to where you're innovating your own world if you're going to be that type of person.
So otherwise, I wanted to say, "Free" is one of my favorite songs. Did you get a chance to? Did you write that song with them? "Free"?
I'm a co-writer on that song. Yeah.
Huge props on that. That's one of my favorite songs from them.
Oh, right on, Mel. Thank you. That's very cool, man. We when we did that album, that was during my trial, not trial period, but that was during that time. We literally went into the studio like a regular job, a rehearsal. We had a rehearsal lockout room, and we went in there like a regular job, like every day. Like we'd show up, we'd play, we'd write songs, work on songs, change stuff like that. We treated it as, we didn't just be like, oh, we're a band, let's hang out. You know what I mean? Like that's what we did every day for it took about a year to do that album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we wrote a lot of songs for that album, and not a lot of them made the cut. Only the ones that obviously that are on the album made the cut. But we wrote a lot of songs for that album, and some worked, and a lot of them didn't. So.
So what was your tenure with the band? When did you end up leaving Powerman 5000?
Well, so there's a little bit of a gap in there, but basically I was in the band. Basically, I from my first footstep through the door, it was 2000 at the end of 2001, and then basically the last album I did Builders of the Future. I'm the drummer on Builders of the Future, which a lot of people don't know that because I had left the band after we recorded that album, and
that was in 2014, right?
That was 14, or 15, So Ray-Tan had stepped in, and it's his face in the album, which kind of twerked me a little bit sideways, because he wasn't on the album. But I get it. I get the other side of it, where he was representing the band and going to be the live drummer, so that they needed somebody in there that was more relevant, than obviously the dude that left. But yeah, if you look in the very back credits, it just says small print, drums by Adrian Ost, like very small. But so I was basically from 2001 is when I first put my foot through the first door, and until 14. But then there's a little bit of a gap in there. I can't remember exactly the years. I want to say like 2008 or so, or maybe 7, where I stepped away again. I stepped out again, or I stepped away the first time, and this dude Gordon came in. And then when Gordon left, I reached out to Spider and said, "Hey, man, I'd love to come back." And he's like, "I'd love that." And then that's what I did. So
nice. I know. I kind of wrap it up here. I know you're a busy guy, but I kind of want to give a shout out to the other project. And you were also in a band called Slow Kill. We mentioned Dope, and you did some recording for George Lynch as well. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I did an album with George. Yeah, me and George, same thing, man. We I got hired to play with his band, and we went over to Japan. We did a bunch of shows in Japan, and then he ended up getting offered a record deal of all things while he was over there. And I'm a songwriter as well. Like, I play guitar and piano, and I've got demos, and I've got all kinds of stuff that I write. And George had heard some of that stuff that I played him. Like, I can't remember why. We were just kind of sitting around one day, and we were just kind of going through shit and just kind of playing each other demos and stuff. And he'd heard a bunch of stuff that I did. And he's like, "Oh, man," he's like, "I really like a lot of that stuff. It's really good." And then when he got offered that record deal in Japan, he's like, "Dude," he's like, I want to do this with you. Like, I want you to partner up with me. Just me and you, like nobody else. Like, I just want to do this record with you." And I'm like, I was really surprised. I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "It's not a lot of money. Unfortunately, it's like, I'd love to have everybody else, but it's like, it was only like 15 grand or something like that. It was just nothing, for a record deal, indie record deal." He's like, "But I just can't, no one's going to get paid if we bring everybody in the band." And I go, "Okay." It felt a little weird, but I was like, "You know what? I'll write a record with you." So that's what we did. Man, George would come over to my house, and I had a studio in the backyard of my house in LA, and he came over like Monday through Friday, like, I don't know, like 11 o'clock in the afternoon until like 5 or 6 at night. We literally just wrote a record together.
So that's badass. He's an incredible musician as well, too.
He's awesome, man. He's great. Yeah. And he's a really great dude.
What was the name of the album?
Souls of We is the name of the band. Shit, I wish I knew the name of the record.
I'll mention.
I guess I'm not really good at remembering my record.
I'm sorry, man. But
that's all good.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like I can keep you here for hours just talking about your history and your.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah. So no, I can literally rant on forever and ever, man.
But I kind of want to plug, like, what would be the best outlet to go listen to your discography, and what would be the best thing to check out for your history of drumming?
Well, I back when Reverb Nation was a thing, I doubt it still is anymore, but I uploaded everything that I've ever written or played on is on my Reverb Nation. So it's just basically a Reverb Nation / Adrian Ost.
Okay.
Other than that, you just got to look to find individual records, like go to Spotify or whatever. But I have all my catalog on that, of everything. That's basically everything I've written. Most of the stuff on my Reverb Nation, I have publishing on, which isn't saying much. Like I've never been a huge percentage holder. Like, there's a few songs where I own like 30-40% and some 100, but majority of the major label stuff, album stuff I've done, like 15 to 20%, probably my cap, but that's most of the stuff on there is all co-written, and I've got some influence in. All
right. And so if someone were to reach out to you for tech work, recording, what would be the best place to reach out to you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know, probably Instagram, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Instagram or Facebook.
Nice.
Or I could just give the whole world my cell phone number.
No,
right now.
don't do that. Don't do that. No, don't do that.
1-800-SUCK-IT.
Yeah, don't do that, man. Well, Adrian, like you're a rad dude, and it's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks,
and
man.
I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we got to do a
Thank
part
you,
two.
man. I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of me, man.
Yeah, we got to do a part two of this and dive down more into your stories and stuff like that. If you have the time.
Yeah, I know. We didn't even touch anything. I just fucking sitting here ranting on like an idiot.
No, I love it, man. I get pulled in that. But yeah, once again, Adrian, we'll talk soon and get you on again. Thank you.
Sounds good, man. Right on, man. Have a great day, dude.